very much. Thank you very much, Francine. Good morning, everybody. Um, Today, we're going to have another session, another great webinar for Business Central and what we call dimensions, which is basically financial reporting, right? Um, we're going to just review how Business Central is going to help us to actually use our own information in combination with the chart of accounts to create reports, and we have tools so accountants can create analysis for financial information without the specific requirements. Sometimes we would think of creating a specific report analysis period by period, or the so-called dimension. We are going to combine budgets, dimensions, chart of accounts. We have many tools, in other words, just to create a analysis, and we are going to specifically check that today from scratch. And let's just begin. This presentation is going to take more or less 1 hour, and then of course we have a Q&A session. So as well, if you need and want to review specific information about something, that those of you who have an AV or Business Central and would like to check something at the moment while I'm explaining, just please feel free to ask at any moment. Okay, so Business Central has a specific topic called dimensions that they are going to help us. If you are preparing reports, financial reports, we sometimes need to group our transactions that we post. They come from many modules, from retail, purchase, standard sales orders. We have plenty of transactions that are actually coming. But what happens when a chart of account is not the only resource to actually use information and report? We do not only have the periodic analysis by only reviewing the balance of a GL account, right? Of course. So from that, we need to move on to actually depict or show the information, but with our own criteria. That's what dimensions exist, right? Let's explain this. This is the agenda for today. We're going to learn how to set them up, how to use them in purchase documents, and how do we actually set up the entire system so we can use the so-called dimensions. So let's go there. The first step is always understand and set up the first dimensions that we do. How is this and how it works? Okay, the dimensions and the values that we're going to use are customized, of course, by company, right? We can use 8 dimensions, okay? We can create detailed reports with those dimensions. For example, how do we use them and what they are? We have the first example. Account that the item sale was posted to. That's, of course, the GL account. That's per se a dimension of how we structure financial information by the number of the GL account. But sometimes that is not only the way we could organize it. Sometimes we would like to see the region for the sales as an example, North America, South America, and that as well, think of a catalog of specific values that are going to help us to depict the same information, financial information, I mean, but with our own criteria that is not only a GL numeric value. Then who sold the item as another example, or where was it sold, for those of you who have different point of sale, of course, but I mean different regions where you are actually selling, or stores, outlets, even the warehouse, right? But you need to understand sometimes that type of information. Then the kind of customer who bought your item. So the idea is that we could add to any transaction the GL account. Of course, it is necessary when we are posting a document like a purchase order or sales order. So additional to that, we need to concentrate on the features of the information. So if we post a value, for instance, for a sales operation, we need to get the income value with the GL account for the sales operation, with the region where I was selling an item as an example or service, plus the person who actually sold it in the store maybe that was sold, plus, well, plenty of your information. Think of that. Think of what information you need that should be included in any operational transaction. And of course, the financial type of transactions coming from general journals. So in addition to the GL account, we could add, or we can add other criteria. So as an example, it's always useful to think of the departments, for example, for expenses, the division code. This could be, for instance, if you have more than one, if you work with supermarkets, you might have a wholesales and the retail division as an example, right? So it's the same merchandise and it's the same type of resources used in your company, but you have different sales channels. Event type or region, well, they are more specific. An event could be just the Christmas, the type of offers, or maybe you need to organize the inventory sold out, for example, and you need to review the profitability of the campaigns. And the region, okay. So this is an example, right? So another ideas could be for those of you who have retail stores, for those of you who work with manufacturing, what type of products you manufacture. Sometimes it could be pharmacy, sometimes it could be even in a supermarket, produce, could be just resale items. So at the same time, in a supermarket, you do not only have departments, but type of products, okay? Now, once you get the idea that the idea is just to add to your transactions more criteria of analysis. That's a dimension. Then we need to define different values for every dimension. For the department that I mentioned before, or the region, we need the countries or the states. For the departments, in this example, we would be adding the internal departments in my company, because I would like to prepare reports and follow up my expenses, internal expenses, as an example. So every time I make an expense, either through an invoice, through a vendor, or through a GL journal, well, I'm gonna get specific information with a specific department that, in my example, is administration for G&A, operations for sales, the sales people, manufacturing or production, and well, all those criteria are gonna be then helping me to create, why not, budgets, as an example. Every department internally in my company, I can create budgets for this. So keep in mind two things: GL account actual information, dimension value as a pivot, and in the other hand, the planification that could be and should be actually the budgeting. Then everything could be combined. That's the final idea, but let's keep it slow. The dimensions as well are organized in a way that all the general entries could have two specific general dimensions or global dimensions. And how they work actually? Well, we actually in the system have 8 type of dimensions, so you can use all of them. Of course, keep in mind that your database is going to grow. But for now, at least 2 dimensions should be and are super important in every company. So keep in mind that they could be available not only for reporting purposes, but all the dimensions are usable in every document where you post transactions. And the global dimensions as well are available in the entire system, in all the modules, where you could immediately take them. And in some way, they are available for the user because they are very, very important. And we consider in Business Central that 2 of them are actually part of the financial, the purchase, the sales operation, the everywhere, right? 2 of them will be everywhere, even for fixed assets. For those of you who work with them, you could manage fixed assets in you purchase computers for different offices, different buildings, right? So sometimes, well, that's not only a fixed asset, but as well at some point it was a purchase, it was maybe an expense that you need to budget every purchase or something like that, right? So imagine that if you want to planify or keep budgets for your entire company, well, there will be a budget for the warehouse, a budget for the purchase, for the sales department, and another for the G&A, well, the financial or administrative expenses. Well, so departments in my company, at least in this example, will be everywhere for all the modules, and that's why I considered it as a global dimension. But sometimes maybe there are other type of ideas for dimension criteria that won't be used for the entire company. For this type of dimensions, I would say maybe the sales representatives, right? Sometimes I have been asked about reports to generate profit by employees, salespeople, right? But this type of information has nothing to do with manufacturing at all, or it doesn't have to do with expenses in the supermarket, because these people is outside the facilities. They are not in the supermarket. They go and they sell they visit clients and they do other stuff. So that is not a global dimension, if you understand what I'm saying. Another example would be like, yes, manufacturing in the other way, I would consider that I need to keep track of in a supermarket. I want to keep track of the manufacturing profitability. So in a supermarket, I will consider produce, I will consider meat, because they are like very light type of manufacturing, right? We need to chop, we need to pack the fruit and the meat and put it in trays and start selling with the weights. We scale the item before selling it, and so on. So I would like to measure the profitability or the sales. Remember that how I'm going to measure this, how am I going to use the dimension, is while I was selling a fruit or meat, is going to post a transaction from the POS, or either in the sales, through a sales order, I'm going to get the profitability by calculating the value posted in the sales GL account, minus the cost of goods sold, minus specific additional expenses, right? Minus specific cost of products, etc., etc., etc. But everything was posted through a GL. That's the point. And the dimension was companion of the GL account. And through that, I'm going to be able to then create reports. So keep in mind that this is posted with the key value of the GL account plus then other dimensions. We have two that are super important that will be available for all the processes. Think of them, think of two of them. And then we have dimensions that are just additional. We have 6 more that could be used for internal processes that are more particular in a specific company. Now, how do we set them up? First, before going to a demo where I'm going to explain it, we need to understand that we have different concepts. We could post, even if we use dimensions, we could post transactions where the dimension is not mandatory. Okay, yes, the idea is that even if you use dimensions, some GL accounts, maybe expenses, would require a dimension value for departments, like I mentioned before, but some others are just simply not analyzed through the dimension criteria. And for those specific GL accounts, I would understand that it's not mandatory the use of dimensions. That's fine. Now, where a code mandatory for dimension is? Well, it depends. But for me, as another example, my customers, if I want to analyze what type of customer they are, small, medium, large, as an example, well, I cannot create a customer that is not categorized into one of my specific groups. Why? Because if I show a report for a specific type of the size of the customer, there will be then a value for specific sales transactions that are not categorized into the small, medium, or large criteria, and then the report would be then it's not useless. But at the same time, if I cannot handle reports that do not match my chart of accounts information, then, well, I will be my information is biased, okay? It's not specific for considered to be real, in other words, okay? We're gonna specifically review these values, the blank, the code mandatory, same code, code and no code. But take in mind that while we are learning, the dimension and the use of dimensions could be mandatory, so the person, if they do not handle the dimension information properly, or they do not insert the specific dimension required by the system, they are not going to be able to post any transaction, all right? Keep that in mind because we are going to use that later. So once we understand that part, where do we use dimensions? Of course, we need to generate dimensions. We have different catalogs in the system. These are just some examples in order to learn, but we have more. The first place where we would be configuring would be the salesperson, the GL account, the customer, the vendor, and the item. These are very, very important to understand, at least to learn how do we use dimensions. But we have other type of catalogs that we have in Business Central that are maybe not that common to be implemented for all our customers, such as the resources, the jobs, or the bank accounts, okay? Well, bank accounts is quite important at the same time for all of you in finance, but you do not always prepare, or maybe only if you have plenty of usage for your banks, well, I would consider that you post, you make deposits from stores, you make deposits from this wholesaling sales order operation. Okay, so why not separate all transactions that are coming in one bank account? You might have a bank account working with different type of operations, like, so you receive money, you receive deposits from different channels, right? The stores, the sales orders, the online website. So why not to consider to prepare a report from how how the bank then, while you are actually preparing your reports from the money you have received in your bank, well, why not to depict information in such a way that could be more useful for you using dimensions, right? But like I said, it's not the most common use of dimensions. The first ones, or the most important, of course, is customers, vendors, items, GL account, and some once in a while the salesperson. Apart from this, I could consider manufacturing. We have a module for manufacturing, heavy and light manufacturing, lean manufacturing. We have a service module if you provide maintenance for your customers after you sell an item. For those of you who work with electronics, well, you consider that sometimes you might use a team of technicians that should be providing maintenance for a year of the warranty for an item, all right? So that's the idea. Well, we have other modules where we could use dimensions, but the idea for now is not to consider the entire word. Or ask me, I could give you more information in detail, but for now, for learning, we're gonna use the basic catalogs. Now, as an example, we have other criteria that we're going to use. We need to combine sometimes the dimensions. For instance, we want to measure our, not geographical, stores. Many of you work with LS Retail, so, or other type of channel. So it depends of the store or the website when you are selling, but you need to combine the information from the number of the store, the GL account, the region, the city, and the cashier, as an example. Why not to set them up properly? And you need to combine them, right? So in one specific region, I have different stores. So we could have the dimension for the region, the dimension for the store, and we could combine them and use them. That's how we're gonna see it. So keep in mind, we can combine dimensions in one single transaction. And that is possible. It's not only that, for instance, in a purchase order, we need to get the purchaser information, who is preparing the replenishment, but as well, the region from the vendor, and we need to combine that, okay? But why is this necessary to understand? Because we sometimes need to block combinations, okay? We don't want to post for instance, combinations of dimensions that do not work together never, okay? So if I create a store, keep in mind that the retail or the retail idea, you have your store, you sell, right? But in another dimension that you want to measure, I don't know, budgets for specific expenses that will be for your offices in your for the accountants, right, or for the directors, or in any area that you consider, we cannot combine the expenses from the stores from the offices, okay? So we need to block the combination of some specific items. And if you see here in this specific matrix image that we have this specific idea of blocked and limited, okay? We're gonna check that because we are gonna block some specific combinations. So keep that in mind, and let's now review these specific concepts in Business Central. For now, I'm just need to go to Business Central and review the information. Here is Business Central again, where I'm going to be able to review sales orders, okay? So all of them might have or might not have specific information for an operation, but let's just review the idea and we're gonna start setting them up. Okay, every sales order, let me just review one sales order, and this is a sales order, right? This sales order has the specific customer at Atom Corporation. Very well. For now, hopefully you have seen the sales orders webinars. It's available, but for now, I'm just going to use a sales order where I'm going to sell from the main warehouse 10 units of an item that is called Athens. Simple as. Don't worry about other details for now if you have not seen this training, but well, look at this. We have availability. We need, I don't have enough inventory for now. Actually, I need to, but I have scheduled receipt 20, right? And guess what? The idea of the sales order is that at the end, I'm going to be able to post into the chart of accounts, into the sales transaction, the cost of goods sold, is going to deduct my inventory from the warehouse, many types of information that will be posted through this document. And look at this. It's telling me that I need to select a dimension called store. That was I mentioned in those examples before. But remember, for those of you who work with LS Retail, well, of course, the store should be pre-configured, so everything should be automated for the specific post, okay? How do we use the dimensions in this example, where not everything is completely automated? The idea is very simple. You would need then just to add the specific dimension that you require. For me, the most important idea that I want to present for the webinar is that I'm going to have a sales operation that will be posted in North America. So I'm creating a dimension plus another dimension that I'm going to use that is called stores, where I have different regions, where I have different stores localized in different regions, right? So why am I doing this? Because I would like to get the actual profitability or different financial analysis, okay? So I'm just going to select the store North, okay? Very good. And well, I don't know if I require another one, but I have the customer group. Maybe the customer is large. Very good. So everything, all this information, right, will be, guess what? Once I post this information, when I post this transaction, I'm going to get a sales order posting into different GL accounts. But with this, I'm going to be at least, let's think of the P&L, right? Well, for those of you who are not accountants, we need to periodically measure the profitability of the sales operations, as well with criteria like the region, the store and the customer group. Like in this example, my dimensions are large, medium, small, right? And consider that because when I prepare my reports, I would like from the source of the transactions get all my information. Otherwise, I won't be able, or would be very difficult to create good reports, financial reports. So it comes in handy. You have it in the system, use them, and with your own ideas, I could help you in any case, in maybe 1 or 2 hour session to create any design for new dimensions. It's very, very easy actually. That's why I'm giving you the actual transaction so you can just see it. And while I'm gonna get the post, I just need to preview. Oh, sorry. I forgot to explain one concept that is super, super important for dimensions. Let me just review where this value is: actions, functions, reports. We're gonna get information from any transaction that is going to be available in the header. I'm going to explain you that concept, or in the line. And let me just tell you why this is used like that. Order, here is dimensions. Okay, and once again, I'm going to do the same operation to add a store. This is what the system is requiring for now. That's it. Okay, what I have done, I have a sales order, correct? With this sales order, yes, very good. I have $8,000 that I'm going to be able to post, and the taxes will be 480, correct? That's just the value. But what happened with the dimensions when we are going to be able to, when I'm posting, okay? I need to understand that I have a header in every transaction. I'm talking about purchase and sales orders, and I have a header that is going to be able to handle dimensions for the entire document, okay? And this is what I have done while I was selecting in the top the related information and coming into the order menu option from the menu. And I have here the options for dimensions, where I have selected the store value that the system is trying to get, okay? Then look at the message that is asking me for the dimension, the dimensions that was shown before, because if I don't have that dimension, Business Central is not going to allow you to post, because Business Central can be customized to handle all the sales orders with the use of a dimension. If I don't have it, I'm not going to be able to actually post it, okay? So let's take a look. I'm just going to delete the store dimension that I know that is mandatory. Yes, okay. So here is a sales order, and I'm going to try to post the transaction. And I have, once again, the error. You need to select a dimension value for the stores. And here it is. I have the customer 1000 was mandatory to get, or every sales order is mandatory. So they need to have a dimension for all the sales order, right? All the sales orders. And look at this value. It's very important to understand this. The context for this dimension is the sales header, okay? When I use this context, the sales header means that this dimension that is required to use, I need to use the store for this transaction in the context of the sales header, meaning that I need yes a dimension for this entire document. So how do I do this? In order to get a dimension for all of these sales transactions, the idea is that I just need to go to the related option from the menu and select the dimension value and add your store information. Why? Because I configure all the sales orders to be used, or all the customers require for every time I post a transaction using the customers, I need a store. Simple as. I'm going to show you how this is set up. Once I get this information, this is asking me to update the second option for the dimensions that I'm going to tell you. This is telling me, hey, you have changed the dimensions in the header, meaning that will be for the entire sales order, but do you want to update the lines? I'm going to click yes. And this has updated this specific line. Why? If I have already set it up for my sales order, because at some point I have more specific information that could be as well useful to get and to understand that I might have maybe in the same order another item or the quantity, doesn't matter. But on the line level, it's very important that where I is thinking, give me 1 second. I mentioned in the first line, and in the second line, I could have, I don't know, another, maybe the second line would be for the store south, okay? An example like that. So, transactions through a single document that handle more specific information, okay? So, but normally we would be working only with the sales header context that I explained you before. That's how we normally do it, okay? Or how normally it works. So once I generate that information and once I inserted this, let me just, I have once I generated the information, well, in Business Central, what I will be doing then is just working on a level where I'm going to be able to post into the different GL accounts. In this case, I have normally the sales, the accounts receivable, and the inventory, at least cost of goods sold. Okay. For those of you who are accountants, this information will be posted, will be posting with all the different criteria into the different, let's see. Yes, I have a lady that is looking for more information. Something was not updated. Sorry, that was sure. Let me just redo the setup and I will be done. I had a delay. Just excuse me for that. And let's continue that. Let's move on. Yes. Okay, it's working well now. Okay. Before posting the information, this is how I'm going to be able to use dimensions to be used with my reports. I have these GL entries. Let's just take a look. Of course, I am going to have the direct cost. Then I'm going to have the income, product sales. I'm going to get the sales tax and so on. All the GL accounts that will be used, an AR, an inventory, accounts receivable, blah, blah, blah. We are just checking all the GL accounts involved into this specific transaction and look at all the different amounts, okay? In combination with the specific dimension that you have, look at this, every transaction has a dimension. So why not to take a look maybe at the income product sales account? I'm receiving $8,000 from this specific operation, and I could use not only the GL account 4,200,
But as well, this information will be using the North America and the store number 2 or store north description for the specific value. Well, I have 2 dimensions, the areas and the stores. And what are we going to do with this information? Well, we can use this for all the reports we need, but remember, the purpose of this is to learn the functionality, not only about dimensions. This could be used for budgets. This could be used for your specific financial reports, financial and only financial, okay? And then all this information then could be as well sliced and diced to be automated to generate the reports for you. I'm going to explain you at the end those tools where we use it. They are just called account schedules. Okay, hopefully you get the idea of the how this is used. And now I'm going to set up the first dimension. Okay, you just need to open the catalogs that is called dimensions, and then you're going to be able to look at that. Okay, I just forgot to mention something very important. This is as well very useful for NAV. It's just exactly the same information, so please don't go if you are only using NAV. Now that we have all this, then I'm going to be able to open the dimensions very well, and with this information I'm going to get these specific values: area, customer group, departments, and stores. Now the idea for me is that I would like to get another type of a specific dimensions. I'm going to create the event type of and then added a specific and a name. Okay, event code caption, because well, the idea is that sometimes I'm going to create some marketing events to actually sell my items and so on, and then I'm going to need the dimension values. So through the specific dimension list, I'm going to select the specific dimension that I want, and I'm going to add values to that specific list. So this could be maybe the winter, this could be spring, I don't know, summer, and so on, right? I don't know, maybe I'm going to have the party 01, is another type of event, right? Or maybe I'm going to have teens, another event that I'm going to create, okay? So all of these dimensions will be then useful now to be used, and we need to add the value that is called standard. This is very important to learn, because this is how we are going to make Business Central. We're going to create a setup where this value is going to be available for all your purchase and sales orders, your general journals, etc. Right? So it's very important to define this value as standard. But as well, we could use some other ideas for my context, where I could just add a specific text. If I just have heading, this is just text. Just to be able to see here in my same list, maybe some formulations like begin and total. But for now, I'm not will be standard, and you don't have to do anything else with this standard configuration. You are telling Business Central, I'm going to use this value to actually post into any GL account through any document. Or as well, you could block any of these values whenever you don't want to use them anymore. This means this is because sometimes, for instance, maybe the party 01 or after the winter or the spring, or well, maybe the spring is not useful anymore because, well, the time of the year where we are at, well, it's just actually maybe only the winter value should be used, okay? So through the use of specific values, we might include some other logical criteria, and you need to block or enable specific values. So for now, and from now on, I will be using only the winter value. Okay, then the important thing from here is that sometimes it's very, very, very important to understand that some of my values are going to be mandatory. Let's take a look at this. So sometimes I'm going to need to define the event value to be yes or yes mandatory. Let's define it first. Okay, where should be this mandatory? I'm going to click on account type, default dimension. Let me click to show this option and how this is done. Whenever you need to actually make something super important, it's very important, and you don't want one single transaction to avoid blank spaces, because remember, now, you might see, and it's very common that you have reports that simple, that even though they are simple, don't good, they don't have all the information that required. You need then sometimes a programmer or a specialist that is going to help you to fill out the information. How do we avoid that? From the root, well, go to this option and select whatever you need to add a specific value. For instance, for my events, I always yes or yes need a custom. For the customer, I'm yes or yes going to need the specific value, okay, for the event, all right? Or maybe the salesperson, okay? Every time I use a salesperson or a purchaser, they are responsible for a specific campaigns and events, as an example. So if I add this table, we have different tables in Business Central that are going to be necessary to be used, then with the dimension. Sorry for the disconnection, let me go back. Okay, here we are again. I just need to refresh. Okay, so I have added the value. We have the salesperson, and with this you can think of, okay, every time a Business Central review that I'm using a salesperson, I would need always an event. Another example, let me just try to add it. 1 second, please. Okay, the idea here is that as well, this is going to be updating the system, and it's going to take maybe a couple of minutes, but otherwise I will need just to update it and force it just for the webinar. Okay, very well. Now that this is decided, the important idea here is that you have forced the system that, and you're telling that every time you use Business Central in this way with the dimensions, well, you are going to be using this mandatory information, yes, or Business Central is not going to allow you to actually work. Another criteria would be maybe the stores. Okay, for those of you who have stores, same idea. I'm going to use account type default dimension. Well, in this example, in this other criteria, let me just think of every time I use a, let's see, a GL account. Every time I post into the chart of accounts or GL account table, I'm going to need a store yes or yes. Okay, this is not very common to have this type of criteria. Look at this. For the GL account, I'm going to select the code mandatory. This is the value that I was showing before. Okay, same code. If you need a specific value for maybe for the store north, okay, let me just give you the examples. I have the GL account and I'm gonna tell Business Central, you need to use the same code called store north every time we post into the chart of accounts, which is actually quite restricting all the other options, okay? So if you need to restrict the specific values, well, you can as well do so. Okay, let me just delete this part because I'm going to show you this specific filtering option in other way. But for now, you know where you're gonna be able to set up the system in order to use a specific dimension. Okay, so for the stores, I'm going to be using that in combination with the chart of accounts, and the events in combination with the people that are the salesperson. Very well. Hopefully you get that first concept. How do we create them? And I'm going to go now explain you the concept of the general or the global accounts. Let me just open this.
Let me see, it's a little slow now. Okay, very well. Yeah, Business Central. Good. What I'm gonna do now is reviewing the global dimension concept. In the general ledger setup, let me just open the window. The general ledger setup is actually the main window where we are gonna be configuring the financial module, okay? The general ledger setup is gonna help us then to configure the concept of the dimensions as well, okay? So we have, like I mentioned before, the 8 type of dimensions or possible 8. You have 8 possible dimensions that you could add, but only 2 are more important, which are the global dimension 1 and the global dimension 2 that in my example, I have departments and areas. How then does this work? Well, you would need to come into Business Central and click on change global dimensions, okay? If you click on this, you're gonna see an option where you only need to select what will be the dimension number 1 and the dimension number 2. With this, all your financial information in the entire system and the other features, all the documents are going to be able to use all of this, okay, by default. Actually, all the system can use all the dimensions, but this is going to give you like more tools actually to use in an easier way all these specific these 2 dimensions, like a in an easier way, because we're going to see in a moment the other 6 could be added to any functionality, but you need additional setups, okay? But you need 2 that will be available in Business Central in all modules. Okay, so we have seen then how the options will be used, the dimension values, the combinations. Let me just now, and we need to see now the combination. So dimension combination. Here it is. The dimension combination then is just a matrix where we would need to define, if necessary, how do we need to sometimes block the combinations of some specific dimension. So in the first column, I can see the dimensions that I have in my system: areas, customer, department, etc. What I'm going to do now is just try to block the usage of the combinations of 2 different dimension values. So in the actual columns that you can see here, we have the areas, customer group, departments, event, the same dimension, okay? But what I'm going to combine is for example, the area value with the department, okay, for any specific reason. What I'm going to do is block it. I'm going to block because for me, the areas might be used only for sales transactions, maybe, and the departments are only used for expenses. So yes, you could block them by clicking on the combination of the 2 values and then click here in this specific area, and you could add any of these 3 options. No limitations mean that you could combine any value. Limited means that you would need to add additional information to tell this Business Central which values are going to be forbidden to combine or completely blocked. In this example, in the first one, I'm gonna be blocking the usage of departments in combinations with areas. And now for events, I'm going to limit my values, and I'm going to just the list of values for events, where I'm going to say, okay, I have different values: party, spring, summer. All right, this is coming from the type of events. But guess what? I have different departments. Departments in my company, I have administration, production, and sales. Okay, the only ones that will be able to use the specific campaigns for marketing in my company will be, of course, the sales department.
has nothing to do with the manufacturing values. So I'm going to block all the manufacturing dimensions because for me, they will be using this type of a value only for internal purposes in the manufacturing. This specific dimension has nothing to do with the actual usage of the campaigns for selling or marketing type of events. All right, so that's fine. That's why I'm blocking this. Okay, and this is what we call limited. I'm not blocking all the values per se. For instance, in this case, I completely blocked the combinations of department with area. But in this limited concept, I have just blocked some of the values, okay, not all of them. Only I blocked the manufacturing or production department, but the sales department is available to use the specific campaigns or events dimensions, okay? Hopefully that is easy to understand, and this is how we then set it up. Another idea for the dimension then is that you could, of course, not allow all the combinations. Simple as, okay? So then it's not advisable actually to do so. Analyze, it depends on how you actually want to use the dimensions, okay? So you have seen how through a sales order, we're gonna be able to post financial information, and you have seen how we can use the dimension in a global way, in a particular way, and more, to be more specific, we could actually set up the combination to be actually useful for us. At the end, we also set it up specific tables like customer, chart of accounts. You have different systems, tables in your system where you could add the specific mandatory usage of any dimension. Once we get into that, then the only part that I need to explain to finish this is just the concept of the account schedule. Okay, remember, if you have any doubt, we can review it, or I could give you more information. I could give you the same presentation to see it later. What is the account schedule concept? We need sometimes a specific tool to help us make reports. This is as well for NAV, remember? Okay, account schedule is a tool to create reports, simple as. You don't need always to have a programmer to help you with the specific analysis that you want to do. How they work just in a simple way, because we have a webinar dedicated to create reports. But keep in mind, the account schedule is a tool in Business Central for accountants, so the accountants can create their own reports without the necessity of specific technician or programmer that is going to take information from the database. Why? Because the account schedule are for accountants taking information from the chart of accounts and the budgets with the uses of dimensions, okay? So apart from this, you're gonna need some other people working whenever you need, for instance, to combine databases, you need information from different tables that are not related always to financial information, you need to create calculations or charts or that sort of reports that are more advanced. These are only for financial analysis. Let me give you an example just because we are going to explain the usage of dimensions. I have the income analysis. I created one report. I have many reports. Some of them are actually for Business Central and Navision created out of the box. The reports that are called M, okay, that have an M in the first part, they are created for you by the specific system, okay? So by Business Central. So the idea of all of this list of reports, they are reports. If you open your account schedule window, you're gonna be able to review the information by clicking on overview. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm just gonna click on this specific function, and this is the tool that you're gonna be able to open. At this point, well, you could actually even separate from the actual client, and this is very useful in Business Central. You could create or open in different windows specific functionality just to open and view only in one window, well, all the information that you need. But here, this tool is going to actually help me to depict financial information, like in this case, categories for my accounts. Instead of seeing the GL account number, I have categories. Look at this, I have the current assets and the total of current assets. Then I have equipment, and all my liabilities, right? So these are the account categories. So I could have a report where I could see the information in an easier way, but as well in real time. So look at this. I have the specific categories in this value, in this section, in this column, and here the actual value for the balance. This was created by an accountant who actually wanted to see this information this way. Okay, so the good thing about this is that Business Central is going to take the information however you indicated. For instance, I want to see the information on a year basis, but you could select week, month, quarter, or year. Okay, just as a preview of how the account schedule work. But as well, I have a date filter where you could categorize, well, was for the year, but you could change this specific date to be according to your necessities, showing only the information and the values filtered by the specific date filter, of course, right? But guess what? I have the dimensions here. So why not to use only the specific values from the sales department, okay? Remember that this is available. This is one of the places, well, I don't have this information in this case with the values, but this is how actually we use them, okay? We actually use the dimensions here, okay, in first place, because of course you can use them in other applications with other, once the information is here, you can use it however you want it. But I'm as well using this tool because it has the functionality to create reports for the accountants with the specific tools that the accountant is always looking for, the periodicity, the specific filters that you might use in your company. Like in my example, I have the departments. And if you remember, I have the global dimensions. So I have the department and the area filter available immediately for you or for the accountant in this example, okay? So why not to show now the information for America as another example? Very well. Let me see if I have values in this demo. Sorry. Well, at least I have some assets that some inventory, okay, that was posted into the America dimension value, okay? This is not organized because I only set up the dimensions for this demo, but here I have a value, and if you click on this value, well, you're gonna be able to see more detail. That's why this is very useful for accountants. Okay, so they can navigate into how this inventory was posted into this region. And I'm filtering now all my report for all the categories only containing information from America. Okay, this is exactly the way we wanted to use or how we want to use a dimension. And at the end, of course, we have budgets. As well, we have a webinar for budgets, but just keep in mind that sometimes we need to use maybe it's very common to have a budget for an entire year with the values for on a periodic basis, maybe monthly. You review at the end benchmarks or create KPIs or variance reports for budgets on a monthly basis. So, well, look at this. I have for a budget the usage of departments and areas as well. So if I just let me show you at least the GL budget concept, because this works in dimension in combination with the dimension. So GL budgets is just a functionality where you could upload from Excel, and maybe you take information from your last year or historical data, and you want to actually have benchmark for the future. This needs to be done manually, by the way. All right, but look at this. For the same category accounts that I was depicting before, this is a report that I created. Well, I would need to decide how they will be following in the specific months. And I could add maybe, I don't know, let me just add the value for the income, maybe 70,000. Okay, look at this, okay. I'm adding my budget. This is how I create it. And you could also use filters. So why not to have One, look at this, the department filter and the area filter. Maybe I would like to create budgets for America, another budget for Europe, another budget for Asia. So how complex this could be, plus comparing it to the actual information. Well, Business Central is going to make this faster for you, because once you understand that dimensions could be used in all these different tools through this from the financial a source, then to then a combine with all these specific functions that I'm showing in this case, well, at the end, you're going to be able to analyze lift data in your account schedule tool to actually review information in a more professional, faster, and maybe better way than only having this analysis through normally Excel. Okay, let me show you another very common example just to depict the dimension functionality. I'm going to have the P&L. The P&L is the analysis for the specific periods, correct? And then, well, for those of you who are not accountants, just that is just the general idea of having an income report. So I'm going to have the income coming from different sources. In this case, I provide services and products that I actually resell. Oh, this is not correct. This value is negative, should be negative. Okay, but then I generate my total income minus the cost of goods sold. Okay, the cost of materials, expenses, and all of this. Very well. So this could be, well, here is my net income, only 58,000 for an entire year. Maybe my company is not doing very well so far with the COVID or something like that. But here I have more analysis that an accountant can do. Is very easy for them if they request more training to how an accountant could learn how to make this analysis, maybe year to date, period by period, or maybe the last year with in comparison with this year, specifically for the type of analysis that an accountant would do for a P&L. But the idea for today is that here we could add any filtering for the same departments, and as well we could filter by area as well. Why not select the America value, so I could generate the income statement for different periods only for taken only filtering by the America operation, okay, and so on, and then later combine it with the specific budget that should have to be logical. So we are combining if I want to analyze specific information from Business Central that should be the real data, how you analyze it, then you need to take this concept, a budget that has the same or similar criteria, okay? So just take that information, we have the budgets, that needs to be similar. When I create a report for my budgets, they should be matching the information that I want to analyze from the real data, so they can actually be combined. So I would need to create a budget that should analyze information for all these specific periods, okay? So I want to analyze information now that we are in November. Well, I should create a budget that has this month minus the last, another one -2, the current period -1, the current period -2. So you will need to create that type of budget. Very well. So then we're going to be able to at last use this information in a with this tool, very dynamic way. Otherwise, you would need to go to Excel, filter by month, whatever you, however you need it. And at last but not least, we would be printing my report starting from a specific date if you want it, and then as well, I don't know, send it, print it, preview it. And as an example, we have combined all this information with a Outlook. This could be as well very useful for you. Remember, all of these functionalities available in NAB. So with this, I will be sending a report. Sorry if it doesn't have information. It was filtered by the specific dimension that doesn't have values. But here is how the accountant prepare a report with its own analysis for the different periods for all the GL accounts required, in this case for the income statement. But remember, the accountant, now that you get this information, we can train your accountants to use the budget, of course, the chart of accounts, and of course the dimensions. But in order to use, at last but not least, the account schedule tool, so they can, without the necessity of any other complex tools for reporting purposes, immediately just in Business Central, at least analyze financial information. Okay, that's the idea of the dimensions. How this is how then we use them through the source, sales orders, purchase orders. How do we add them? And then at last, after configuration and the proper configuration, which tools are available in Business Central, at least to be then that are available for me to create my own reports. Okay, but remember, this is not limited to this. We have another type of more complex tools that will be showing information in a more professional way. Like, I don't know, we have just reports, we have, or where we can use the information created in Business Central, and then we could just, for instance, I'm opening now the Power BI page. This is another website that is integrated with Business Central to review information and reports in this particular dashboard a way with KPIs and charts, etc. So it's like more professional for reports. Let's call it that way. Power BI works this way. And here we could as well use our dimensions. Okay, just to give you in a brief, a very general explanation how the dimensions are being used. Okay, so here, this is it. Now we are finalizing our webinar for today. I don't know if you have any specific question for today. And well, let me just know if you need something. I can provide this specific meeting for you, the recorded file, and of course this presentation as well. If you need it, just please let me know. Okay, with this we are finishing today's session, and see you next week.